Hello and welcome to CTV News Across Canada for Thursday, February 27th. We have got the top local stories from coast to coast, stories that affect you and our country. Thank you for joining us.
The stunning moment, part of this parking garage collapsed, captured on camera.
I'm in absolute awe. I've never seen this in my 51 years being alive.
Jason Cole was among those using the Slater Street Parkade on Tuesday and noticed something was very wrong. He called 911 around 5 p.m.
When we were coming through, we actually saw one of the girders had actually broken and was separating from the rest. 5 others were also bending under the weight load.
Officials confirming the supports reinforcing the upper level were cracked and broken. Ottawa fire crews evacuated the structure, and hours later, just before 5 a.m., a section of the top level gave way. Piles of heavy snow and concrete plunging several stories down. No one was injured. About 50 vehicles remain inside the structure, some of them likely a total loss. The cause of the collapse still under investigation.
The snow for sure didn't help, but it's too early in the investigation to say that that is the sole cause of the failure.
Work is ongoing to shore up the structure before the city decides what's next.
Right now, our priority is ensuring the safety of the site, the stability of the structure that remains, certainly the security of the area in terms of passers-by, vehicular traffic, adjacent buildings.
So right now they're demolishing the front of this building at the area of the collapse, and that's so that they will eventually be able to move the perimeter back and eventually open up Slater Street once again. Now, before all of this happened, this parking garage was slated for demolition, and we just received a statement from the ownership group, GWL Realty Advisors, a spokesperson saying in a statement just received now that this is a concerning incident and we're thankful there are no injuries. We're working closely with the city emergency crews and a local team of experts to address the situation, render the site safe, and allow for the removal of any vehicles, saying that they're going to work with the relevant parties to investigate the cause of this collapse. Now, of course, people are wondering what the status of their vehicle is. A number of people telling me that they have not been able to get any information from Indigo, or I guess this ownership group as well. And right now, crews behind me, they are now lighting up the scene so that this demolition work can continue as it gets dark now here, Matt.
An incredible scene, frustrating for many too. CTV's Katie Griffin live on Slater Street for us tonight.
During the arrest, one of the individuals who was arrested said that they were part of a gang and there's going to be a gang war. In saying that, we hear that quite a bit, so I'm not overly concerned.
Winnipeg Police Inspector Elton Hall says one of the gang-related incidents includes a brazen daytime shooting near Manitoba Avenue and Mackenzie Street just last week. In other instances, 8 people involved in gangs were arrested and 6 firearms were taken off the street, 4 of which were loaded at the time. While Hall believes the activity may be linked to the drug trade, he says there's a variety of reasons why violence occurs. However, he also says there appears to be a flow of firearms coming across the border and onto Winnipeg streets.
This went up exponentially. Traffic guns from the United States, always handguns, generally Glock or 9mm handguns. They sell very quickly in Winnipeg, and they go for usually quite a bit of money, but it's unfortunately the gun of choice for people on the street now.
As the weather warms up, Hall says he expects to see even more criminal activity on Winnipeg streets. Meantime, he says there will be an increased police presence in the Lord Selkirk area to help curb the crime and gang violence there.
Alexandra, we talked about what police are doing. How about the community? How is it reacting to this string of violence?
Well, Marilee, we were in the Lord Selkirk area today, and many of the folks there were tight-lipped and didn't want to appear on camera. However, Area City Councillor Ross Eady says he isn't surprised and emphasized the need to prevent people, especially youth, from getting involved in gangs. As for advice to those living in the area, Eady couldn't offer much, but he did recommend people call police if they're concerned about violent activity in their neighborhood.
All right, thanks for this, Alexandra.
In Halifax on Sunday, a 6-year-old boy was stabbed multiple times by a stranger. Elliot Chorney is facing charges that include attempted murder in relation to the incident. The next day, another stabbing, this time at the Cobequid terminal in Lower Sackville.
Shortly before 1 p.m., our officers responded to an altercation on Cobequid Road at a bus terminal. Involved 15 individuals approximately.
Officers quickly conducted a traffic stop and noticed a young passenger had a stab wound. First aid was applied and the person was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Corporal Guillaume Tremblay says a 16-year-old was arrested later that night in nearby Beaverbank and is facing multiple charges. Those include aggravated assault, assault with a weapon, and possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose.
These past few weeks, we have seen very concerning incidents involving weapons, whether it's in our Simpi area or other police jurisdictions.
Add in another incident last week where a fight that involved a hammer broke out on a bus. The president of the Amalgamated Transit Union is calling for an increase in security.
We've had a supervisor at Lacewood and the Bridge Terminal. They're there at night with a security guard. And we've seen a huge reduction in any kind of issues at both those terminals.
Transit user Ben Corkum has seen aggression aboard Halifax Transit firsthand.
People get upset on the bus sometimes. People have yelled on the bus.
Nothing, however, like the recent spate of attacks that has many wondering about transit safety. And Todd, Corporal Guillaume Tremblay tells me there could be more charges coming in relation to the Lower Sackville incident. He's asking for anyone who has video or information to come forward to help that investigation. Todd.
All right, John is at the Dartmouth bus terminal tonight. Thank you, John.
More than a month after her accident, 6-year-old Aria Cord still needs a wheelchair to get around.
The recovery is going to be extremely long. We're looking at about a year at least.
Aria's parents say on January 23rd, their daughter fell from here, the highest point of the playground equipment, while attending a city-run before and after school care program at Ellendale Elementary. Her dad got a call from staff about the accident, saying she needed to be picked up.
I asked, is everything okay? They said they weren't allowed to assess.
We were thinking that it's like, oh, she fell, maybe she scraped her knee.
But family immediately noticed significant swelling of her leg and took her to Surrey Memorial.
That's when we found out that she broke her femur completely in half and she had to be rushed to Children's for emergency surgery.
Aria's parents' concern would turn to anger as they learned more about what they say daycare staff failed to do.
They performed no first aid. They did not check her out. They did not call 911.
Aria's mom, who quit her job to care for her daughter, says a witness later told them Aria was crying out for help and asking daycare workers to get a doctor.
They made her get up, walk on her leg, and she, I guess, took a few steps. Couldn't walk.
These are the findings of a Fraser Health investigation, which found 2 violations, including that when the girl fell, appropriate first aid was not given. The report says the failure to fully assess the child resulted in a delay of the child receiving the proper and prompt care they required. And that although the parents were told the girl fell, they were not informed of the injury or the seriousness of the injury incurred.
She went from being a completely fearless, independent child to being scared of everything.
That's really the worst part, like taking something like that away from her. Sorry.
The City of Surrey says it has undertaken an internal review of the incident and is implementing all necessary measures as identified by Fraser Health. Fraser Health confirms that concerns raised in the investigation have been addressed and says all childcare workers are required to hold a valid first aid and CPR certificate from a qualified course. But Aria's parents, who are pursuing legal action, are calling for better first aid training for daycare workers to ensure better care when kids get hurt.
I love you.
Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Surrey.
Kananaskis country will soon become a controlled area zoned by RCMP, Calgary Police, Alberta Sheriffs, and the military, making up the Integrated Safety and Security Group. Only law enforcement, special dignitaries, and world leaders will be allowed in and out. Highway traffic will be restricted and trailheads closed.
I would hazard to say it's probably the largest security event since the last time we hosted a summit of this size.
The group will focus on motorcade support, securing hotels, and deployment of specialized teams. Calgary will serve as a main hub for some meetings, travel to and from the mountains, and protests.
We will look to prevent protests from becoming unlawful.
That includes blockading highways. Police in Calgary say designated demonstration zones will be set up, pointing to places such as the Harry Hayes Building or City Hall Plaza.
Unlike Kananaskis in Calgary, there are no restricted zones that'll be cordoned off for extended periods of time. There will be some around the airport and some other sites, but minimal disruptions there.
Police officials say around 10,000 hotel rooms are booked between June 10th and June 18th, with 70 official guests, 2,000 delegates, and 1,400 journalists and thousands of officers. The economic impact is expected to be huge, according to Calgary's Hotel Association. It expects security personnel to begin arriving in mid-May.
We're projecting across the breadth of G7 about 40,000 room nights. This definitely lends to a very stable 2025, versus anything you compare to pandemic years, and it will have a significant impact.
Policing strategies have also changed, with one expert pointing to the rise of social media to organize mass protests.
I call it the salad bowl activism, where you have people who look at every issue, and now that people have become quite quickly radicalized because of social media, something that didn't exist last time we've had an event such as the G7 in our area. This is going to be a challenge.
While some believe the invitation to U.S. President Donald Trump should be revoked.
Can we invite someone who has directly threatened our sovereignty, our very existence as a country?
And Tyson joins us from police headquarters tonight. So Tyson, do we have any idea on the cost of this summit?
Well, Tara, it's a question that is complicated, according to the RCMP. We asked officials about just a rough estimate on how much this event will cost. Officials keeping that number quite quiet today. But if you do some comparison, 2002, when the G8 summit was in Kananaskis last, that event cost $300 million. The last time Canada held the G7 summit was 2018, and that was about $600 million. So that doubled from the last time it was here in Alberta. Now, Calgary Police did say today that this summit will not have a negative impact on its policing budget, and that there will be enough officers on the ground here in Calgary to keep up with just daily policing needs. This summit in Kananaskis, Tara, will take place from June 15th to June 17th.
Okay, Tyson, thank you.
We'll improve public safety right across our province as part of a Team Canada approach in the fight against fentanyl.
Alberta's public safety minister is pushing police agencies to work together to fight drug use and disorder.
Community peace officers from 34 large and mid-sized municipalities will immediately begin to coordinate operations with local police by integrating their communication, their dispatch systems.
The plan will pair peace officers with police to give them more flexibility when responding to calls.
Giving them the ability now to work in blended teams to respond directly to that incident or deal with that drugs.
Increased collaboration and coordination means that police and peace officers will have the tools and support they need to respond quickly.
Edmonton's mayor supports the plan, saying officers are already working towards a common goal. It's a move some criminologists fear could result in a creep of more politics into policing.
It's a particular understanding of the problem. i.e. more enforcement, end of story. Is that ideological? I think so.
This criminologist says mental health supports and shelters need to be part of the solution, while others agree enforcement alone is not the answer.
If it's enforcement only, I don't think that's going to work, because it's the war on drugs. It didn't work last time. It's not going to work this time.
The move is part of a broader national fight against fentanyl, securing the shared border with the U.S. in an effort to appease Donald Trump's concerns and avoid tariffs. Tariffs, the president confirmed, are still coming.
I'm not stopping the tariffs. No. Millions of people have died because of the fentanyl that comes over the border.
Shaylan Skolsky, CTV News, Edmonton.
Every thing that I own, all my VHS, everything is flooded.
We are in a world of hurt down here, man.
Glenn Bullen shot this video at 4:44 a.m. His basement underwater, the damage extensive.
All of our storage is flooded. As you can see, the water main.
As water continued to gush into his home, Bullen went outside to investigate.
Here's the manhole in front of our house. That's my house.
And discovered a massive water main break.
It was like a torrent river. It was pretty crazy.
2 doors down, Benigna Tamoyla woke up at 3:30 in the morning to the sounds of trickling water.
We were like in the Titanic movie, something like that. All my shoes were floating, my husband, the books, like everything, everywhere.
Her restoration company saying it's got a big job ahead. The emergency work expected to take a few weeks, and the long-term repairs could take months and cost up to $100,000.
They had 2 feet, it went above the furnace. All their appliances all been affected. The fridge itself was laying outside. They've got a substantial amount of damage, contents especially.
In the meantime, Tamala doesn't even know where she and her family will stay tonight.
The city shut off the water, the furnace, the gas. They said like maybe 8 more hours. We don't know yet.
Across the street, while the water has receded, Ron Brett's basement is covered in dirt, and his home is getting colder by the minute.
Right now, I'm hoping whether I'm going to get gas back on, whether I'm going to have heat again. I have no idea when that's going to happen.
The water main here was installed in 1952, and while it's not clear what caused the break, residents say water main work was being done in the area.
Like $100,000 probably. Everything that I own in the storage in all of our closets, everything down here.
While the city says it's assessing the situation and conducting emergency repairs, residents are saying Toronto needs to do more to prevent situations like this from happening.
Infrastructure has not been kept up in this city, and I blame that on the politicians.
You know, Olivia, if you're listening, let's get more done. If I see another water main break after this one, I mean, do you think my insurance company is going to help me?
Since 2016, the city has dealt with an average of 1,100 water main breaks a year. And the city says the water main is expected to be restored later this evening, but it doesn't have a timeline yet as to when all of the repairs will be effected because the investigation is still underway. In the interim, the street will remain shut down until further notice. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Michelle.
Thank you, Janice. At Bishop's University, international student applications are already down.
All this discussion, negative discussion on international students has had a very deep chilling effect and has pushed away talent that would have otherwise come to Quebec.
In 2023, the government announced it would raise tuition for some international students to a minimum of $20,000. Now, Quebec wants to reduce the number of new permits to study here by 20%.
The loss of these students will mean that programs, research centers will be compromised.
The CAQ says it's part of an effort to target schools, especially private ones, that use academics as a fast track to residency. As of October of last year, there were 615,000 non-permanent residents in Quebec. 21% were students. That's because the number of study permit holders went from 50,000 in 2014 to nearly 120,000 by 2023.
Essentially what we're doing is we're capping throughout the network and we're reducing we're targeting specific institutions that in the last couple of years had a substantial increase in the number of foreign students.
The opposition agrees there needs to be stricter oversight. The PQ says it should have been done earlier, while Quebec Solidaire worries it could reduce Quebec's competitive edge.
Those students coming in Quebec, they need to know, I'm coming in Quebec for how long? Do I have a chance to stay? What's my future here?
They're doing an half-assed job in terms of really changing the situation.
Last fall, university leaders, including from McGill, were in Quebec City expressing their concern over a cap. Now, McGill will be allowed just over 5,100 new international students, Concordia 5,200, and Bishop's 356. But with all the negative attention, Lebel-Grenier says the university might not even get that.
We don't think we're even going to reach the quotas that were attributed to the university.
Which has him concerned about how that might affect the student body and the university itself. Kelly Gregg, CTV News, Quebec City.
based on our data, could mean reaching 50,000 people.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you spend $1,000 on flyers, are they reaching 50,000 people?
That question is one each political party and its candidates have had to ask themselves.
We are one of the most connected countries in the world. We have the population that uses and watches videos every day. 90% of our population has access to YouTube.
Harneet Singh is the man behind EOK Consults. The firm specializes in political digital marketing and is one of the country's frontrunners in that niche space. His job is to help parties and their candidates capitalize on our country's connectiveness. In past elections, lawn signs and leaflets stuffed in mailboxes were the most visible parts of local campaigns. Now, a lot of that has shifted online.
This election is digital. What we have seen is a record amount of money being spent on social media advertising and other platforms which are digital. Bonnie Crombie and the Liberals spent over $1 million in the last 30 days, followed by the NDP and the PC Party spending close to $200,000. You have the Green Party spending close to $150,000. So if you add all of that up, apart from the other candidates spending on their own election, you're looking at over $10 million of spending digitally on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and other properties of Google.
While this has been a growing trend the last few years, some variables are at play, which has propelled this strategy.
You had almost a surprise election. Not everybody was ready for this. So when you mix in those factors, it makes it the perfect ingredients for an election in which you rely more on digital and the need to meet the voters where they are. It's hard to find canvassers in this weather. It's hard to find people, volunteers, to give their time and energy in a tough weather like this.
As for who the big spenders are locally,
you got Ashlyn Clancy looking at almost close to $6,000. You got Rob here, Catherine Fife spending over $2,000. Colleen James.
Spending that goes a long way, with perhaps more reach than more traditional forms of messaging. And Singh reiterates that while digital ads are here to stay, that doesn't mean more traditional forms of campaign are out the window. He anticipates a more holistic campaign during a fall election and one with a longer campaign window. Tony.
Could well be the case. Okay, Spencer Turcotte, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Prairie Harm Reduction's Kayla Demong met Tuesday's announcement from the province to introduce stiff penalties for drug traffickers with some worries of her own.
Those are things that will affect the people who are using substances in our community the most.
If the changes proceed, the province could fine someone $1 million for drug trafficking, as well as having drug use in places like restaurants be considered trespassing, while also treating drug-related items as weapons so police can seize them without charges. But one of her biggest concerns is potentially waiving those fines if a person chooses to attend drug treatment programs when many facilities are at capacity.
The number of beds that we were promised in January of 2024, we don't have them. So when they look at forced treatment, where are they sending people?
Saskatoon Tribal Council Chief Mark Arcand would like to see many more addiction treatment spots made available, but feels more could be done now.
We see the users that some of them don't even want to tell us they don't want help. They don't. It's real, right? We see the people that want help, not enough treatment spaces.
With a plan to create 500 more spaces in the next 3 years, Justice Minister Tim McLeod says the province will continue to fill a void beyond that.
The Premier has said when we hit 500, if we still need more, we will move to add more.
NDP leader Carla Beck would like to see a more proactive approach.
We also need to have effective measures, an effective plan in this province to start to decrease those rates of addiction that we have seen spiral out of control over the last decade.
Do I think it's going to make a difference anytime soon? No, not at all.
Last year in Saskatchewan, there were 346 suspected and confirmed overdose deaths. Keenan Sorakhan, CTV News, Saskatoon.